All right, everybody. Trappe, welcome back. Harry Potter Book Club series. We have made it through Book 3, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. One word to describe Book 3.
Amazing.
Amazing. Amazing. You hear that, people? Amazing. All right, so we're going to quickly roll through the summary, plot overview of Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. While we're doing that, Johnny's going to talk about some of the things of him reading. I'm super excited about this because, unfortunately, the past two books, you had a little information going into it. But this one, you almost entered it cold turkey. So as I'm going through the summary, I'm going to be able to ask you, like, how did you feel reading this for the first time? Or what did you think in that instance? So let's light these candles and get started. Ooh, weak flame today. Oh, no. Oh, no, John. Oh, there we go. Got it. That hurts so much. It like wouldn't light.
Light them up.
I'm gonna have a freaking burn mark on my thumb. Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. By the way, this is my favorite book, I think, out of the whole series. So I'm pretty jazzed up right now. Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban opens on the night of Harry's 13th birthday. All right, so let's go just like the first three books, right? We start over at the Dursleys. I love how we always start at the Dursleys, or at least at this point have started at the Dursleys, because it kind of warms you up a little bit because you warm up in the Muggle world. So what do we see Harry doing here? We have Harry is a little bit more skilled of a wizard, right? So you can't imagine Harry to take the entire summer and not do a little bit of magic that he's doing, even though you're not really supposed to. Aunt Marge comes in. So describe the whole situation with Aunt Marge at the Dursleys.
Yeah, that was it's just sad, honestly. Like, we've seen the Dursleys treat him like shit before, but like in this book, it just kind of went to a whole nother level. Like, especially that Aunt Marge, like she's talking about like her dog breeding, but she's really talking about Harry and like how you should kill off the runt and stuff. It was just like
terrible. She's the worst person of all time. Harry blows Aunt Marge up, and she kind of floats away, which is a great scene. It's like finally Harry gets to do something to these evil Dursley people, and it's great how she just kind of expands, becomes a balloon, floats away. Super funny. So Harry leaves, and he's picked up by the night bus. But before he's picked up by the night bus, he has that little run-in where he sees like a large black dog. Right, kind of just like right before the bus picks him up, a black dog comes out of nowhere. Like, terrifying, I imagine, seeing like a relatively big black dog also in the middle of the night. Before anything happens, the night bus comes and picks him up. So here's something new. So throughout this whole plot, we're going to bring up new things. So the night bus is a new kind of magical thing. We talked about this in the past. It's another thing that J.K. Rowling takes from the modern real world and puts into the wizarding world. So we don't have there's public transportation. All right, not something we ever thought about or even really needed to think about, but she throws it in there because she's clever. So the night bus, what are your thoughts on the night bus? Takes him to Diagon Alley.
I think the night bus was pretty fun. It was just chaos, like stuff.
Utter chaos.
The driver can't even control it, so the bus is tilting and swerving and speeding. So it's not very pleasant for Harry to get where he's going. Plus, it takes like all night to get there. But yeah, I'm starting to notice like every form of travel for wizards kind of sucks. Like whether it's flu powder, broomsticks doesn't suck, but it's just.
Well, do you think that they suck for wizards, or do you think you just feel that way because every time you experience it, it's Harry's first time? So like
Right.
Harry's first time in flu powder was a disaster, and it was the worst. And he hated it. And he actually didn't he like not even he didn't even end up in the right place, right?
Right. Yeah. But
Yeah.
the family just is like, oh yeah, no big deal. Boop. So yeah.
So Harry gets to Diagon Alley, and Cornelius Fudge, the Ministry of Magic, is there and kind of helps him out, rents the room, tells him that they kind of took care of the whole Aunt Marge situation. So this is interesting. So Cornelius Fudge is the Minister of Magic. He's basically like runs the Wizarding world. All right, and he takes time of it as his day to greet Harry. So obviously you think Harry's a super important person, but when you see the Ministry of Magic coming out and individually greeting him and being like, yo, you had a crazy summer, that goes to show a lot about the Wizarding world and how important Harry is. Harry finally meets up with Ron and Hermione, the Weasleys. Hermione buys a cat named Crookshanks, and this is kind of where the storyline starts going. Harry overhears Arthur and Molly Weasley discussing Sirius Black and how Sirius Black is after Harry. Your first impressions of Sirius Black are what? I think the first time he hears of that is really like through a newspaper, right?
Yeah. So he's most wanted, high profile convict on the run. Like the name is kind of fitting because it was like, oh damn, this is serious. Yeah, he seems very dangerous. And it's kind of interesting how he's like notorious. Like everyone knows about him, and
Yeah.
now everyone knows that he's on the run. So it just like elevates the anxiety all over the wizard world. I thought that was interesting.
So what are your also, I guess, your first time hearing about Sirius Black is also your first time hearing about Azkaban, the prison of Azkaban. And I don't think they go into a whole lot of detail at the beginning. So again, same question. What are your first impressions of Azkaban? Just based off of like, I think the guy in the night bus mentions it about to Harry about how crazy Azkaban is. So
Well, I think
what is that?
they did reference it in Chamber once when Hagrid was telling them when he was wrongly, expelled. Didn't he go to Azkaban for a little bit or something? But anyway, yeah. Once you start hearing about it in detail, that was like, I don't know. That was dark. Like that's like
Super dark.
it's like hell itself in there. Like
Yeah, but it, in a sense makes sense, right? So you've got, I mean, we have maximum prisons in our world for like criminals and stuff, but like they're dealing with wizards and witches, like people who are literally have magical powers. So you need to, if they're criminals,
yeah,
they need to be put in a place where they can be looked after and secure and everything like that. So one of the craziest scenes, students board the Hogwarts Express on their way to school. They run into Professor Lupin, who's like passed out and kind of in the compartment thing. And this is your first run-in with a Dementor. So Dementors, Guardians of Prisoner of Azkaban. I love the kind of characteristic, like when they're around, everything gets really cold and like the lights turn off and like things die, and it's like pretty much just like a cloud of death rolling over you. So reading this over for the first time, I think Ron maybe says like something's outside or like looks out the window. What first came to mind? Like what did you think was out there? Did you think like Sirius Black was already like
yeah,
introduced at that point?
because I didn't think it would be a Dementor because you hear about the Dementors guarding Azkaban, so it's like why would they even be here? I thought
Right.
it would be like Voldemort himself already.
Yeah. Harry faints. Harry hears a lady scream. Lupin wakes him up, gives him chocolate. Chocolate thing is funny. Such like a dark and evil thing. Like the cure is like chocolate. Like that's such a funny thing. Students get to Hogwarts. Let's jump into Professor Trelawney's class. What is her class called?
Divination, I think.
Yeah, divination. Yeah. Professor Trelawney, divination. Very first class. Oh, it says right there, divination class. They're reading tea leaves, right? First of all, what a crazy class to have to be in. Like what? Like, could you just even imagine having to go like, what class are you going to? Oh, we're gonna go to the class where we're trying to tell the future. Crazy. Right. So they're doing the tea leaves thing. Harry sees the Grim, which is a large black dog, and she explains civilizing death. Did you immediately make the connection between the Grim and his teacup and the large black dog that he saw before the night bus?
Yeah, because the way she described it was like almost word for word, like exactly how it was described when he sees it. So then you're like, well, damn, did he really see this grin, or was it just a coincidence? Trelawney she was funny. Like, she seemed like a nut job, but then her like premonitions ended up being correct. So then it was so cool how that all played out. But yeah, when she's giving him all these like death warnings, it was obviously scary because somebody who thinks they can see the future, you obviously don't want to hear that.
Yeah, especially with Harry, because this is the same thing as every other book we've read so far. Harry doesn't even like, he just gets thrust into these crazy problems. Like, for first class ever, like first time meeting this teacher, and she's like, "Oh, you're gonna die." Like, what a poor kid. I think the first book, I asked you what your favorite class was at Hogwarts. My favorite class in Hogwarts is the care of magical creatures class that Hagrid teaches. So at the time we didn't know about it, but now we do know about it. Just because, I guess, from the outside looking in, all the cool stuff about magic is awesome, but I think even the creatures are something that's the coolest part of the whole Wizarding world, because they're so different and they're magical within themselves. So the very first creature we meet is Hippogriffs, and of course Buckbeak, who's like what a magical beast Buckbeak is. And then obviously happens, Harry bows, Buckbeak bows back, Malfoy gets jealous, Buckbeak gives him a right hand to the freaking arm. Was your immediate reaction to Malfoy getting hurt like what was your, just assume like Hagrid was gonna get fired, or like just messing with the Malfoys?
It was going to be. I honestly didn't think it was going to be as serious as it played out to be. It was like one of the main plot lines of this book, but I know that Malfoy's a scumbag, and he was going to try to get Hagrid in trouble for no reason other than pleasure. But I just thought like the worst that would happen was, okay, you can't like just bring a hippogriff into class and introduce them to these animals before you teach them more. I didn't think it was going to be like, oh, you're fired, we're exiling the creature now. Like,
I think it gives you a good look into the Malfoy family. I mean, you obviously know that they're evil and everything, but not only are they evil, but they're going to act on things that like bring their family down, even if it's something stupid like this. So Lucius was all over that situation. Defense against the dark arts teacher, Professor Lupin, which we met on the train. I'm assuming you've noticed at this point that every year there's a new defense against the dark arts teacher.
Yeah,
which is just like a funny thing that has happened so far. Bogart. So Lupin introduces his class to a Bogart, which is something that turns into your biggest fear, and then the only way to defeat it is through laughter, which is awesome. I absolutely love that. Yes. So am I correct in assuming that your Bogart would turn into a spider like it did for Ron, or is there something else?
Probably, yeah.
And what would be, so imagine me, a Bogart, turning into a spider. What would you do to cause laughter?
Jeez. What did Ron do? Like take his legs away just so he would.
He put like skates on his legs, so like this couldn't.
I would probably, like I said, just take his legs away, and then he just turn into a ball and just kick him.
Yeah. All right, that's fair.
That's what it is.
I think I would have a serious problem with seeing something I fear so much, which I don't know what it would be, like a shark, a snake, or a spider, or like heights maybe. I don't even know how heights would be doing, but I don't know in that moment if I could turn it into laughter. I think I would lose. Hogsmeade. So have we been introduced to Hogsmeade yet, or is this the first time in this book? Maybe it has been mentioned, but it's the first time they're old enough to go, right?
Right.
And Harry has no permission slip because Mr. Dursley wouldn't sign it because he's the worst. So Harry's not allowed to go. Hogsmeade is cool. It's again, it's another opening up into the Wizarding world. We've seen Diagon Alley. We've seen Hogwarts. We haven't seen a whole lot more than that. Maybe like Nocturne Alley, but even that's kind of Diagon Alley in itself. So Hogsmeade presents like a whole new location within the Wizarding world. And it's also cool that in Hogwarts, when you get a certain age, they let you go off, like in college, you like go off campus, or like high school. I remember we used to be able to like go off campus for lunch. Like we would just go across the street and like whatever like that. So it's kind of cool that there's that kind of situation. Harry's not allowed to go, so he hangs out with Lupin. A cool situation happens when he's talking to Lupin, and Lupin says, like, well, I was afraid that the Boggart was going to turn into Voldemort, and it turned into a Dementor, which is really kind of interesting because the Dementor is only something he's experienced once, and it literally just happened. And it's also interesting that if you really think about it, the whole book series is, well, at least I think to this point, is Voldemort trying to get to Harry. And then Harry's presents in a situation where he's shown his deepest fear, and it's not Voldemort. Like,
Right.
that just is like, how is that not the scariest thing?
That might be because maybe he's faced him before and he's defeated him or turned him away before. So he has a little more confidence than he used to.
I would say that's on the cocky side rather than confidence. It's a little cocky. During this, Snape brings Lupin a steaming potion, which Lupin drinks, much to Harry's alarm. Did that raise any suspicions to you?
Can you say it again?
When Harry and Lupin are talking, Snape brings in a potion to give to Lupin that Lupin drinks.
Yes. Okay, so yeah, there's definitely things throughout this book where I would notice it, and then
And you're like, what is that?
kind of weird, and then it happens again. I'm like, oh, that's really weird. So that's one of them. I kept noticing that. I'm like, I mean, I know Snape is the potions teacher, but like he's not usually in the helpful mood.
Right, it has to be something.
Has to be something legit for him to keep, doing it. I thought it was funny that the kids thought like he was poisoning him or something, but
yeah, of course he's he's freaking Snape is the worst. Later that night, Sirius Black breaks into Hogwarts and destroys the fat lady portrait that guards Gryffindor Tower. So obviously we know how this book ends and the situation ends, but at this moment, I feel like it's obvious that Sirius Black is going to be the protagonist in this story, just from the way it's set up. Did you think that he was going to get into Hogwarts? Did you think it was going to happen so fast? Do you think he was going to get that far without being like detected?
probably not. I don't like that was kind of shocking because the fact that it kind of happens on their turf, literally in their like dormitory, the most vulnerable area, like you might expect him to slip up on outside the grounds or at Hogsmeade, but again, it just raises the stakes and shows like how determined Black is and how like,
Right.
bad he is at this point.
Yeah, I think it makes him a lot scarier because we got Hogwarts in itself is supposed to be an extremely safe place, even though there's a freaking basilisk running around last year. We got Dementors all around the school, like looking for him. So the fact that he was able to get in, well, I guess he escaped Azkaban in the first place. So next, we have a Quidditch match, Gryffindor against Hufflepuff. During the game, Harry spies a large black dog again. He sees that little grim image, and seconds later, right immediately after, there's a swarm of Dementors coming after him. Just like on the train, he loses consciousness, falls to the ground. I don't know how many times I can say this, Johnny Trapp. We need to get some safer rules in this Quidditch game. This is the second time somebody's fallen out of the sky for no reason.
Auto levitation spell or something.
Like, what are we doing? I don't understand how this keeps happening. I don't understand why there isn't more safety concerns for the students. Also, do you like if 2 years in a row you fall off a broom in midair and crash to the ground, are you going to continue to play that game?
Probably not.
Probably not. I am with you on that one.
Oh, and he like comes close to dying multiple times.
Yes, this dude. That's what I'm saying. He's on the cocky side. Broomstick gets crushed by the Whomping Willow, and this is where you learn from Lupin. I guess Lupin it describes this to Harry that Dementors affect Harry so much more because Harry's past is so horrible. So again, we have Harry thrust into this horrible situation that really isn't his fault. It's just kind of the way it is. Then we have another Hogsmeade visit. This is when Fred and George give Harry the Marauders map. So what is your first reaction to the map?
I love this thing. That was so cool. That's like probably, I don't know. It's probably like one of the main magical items I would want.
Written by Mooney, Prongs, Wormtail, and Padfoot. Do you, reading those four names, did they mean anything to you at the time? It was just four completely random names, right?
Just mentioned and just whatever forgotten about, and it ended up being like a big thing. I was crazy.
Yeah, especially coming from Fred and George Weasley, you don't really
Right.
think that that's going to have any like importance. So Harry uses this map to get around Hogsmeade. He obviously uses it throughout the book to get around the school and stuff, but he goes to Hogsmeade, meets up with Ron and Hermione. This is where he hears Cornelius Fudge. Cornelius Fudge, again, is in the picture discussing Sirius Black and how his kind of actions led to Lily and James Potter being murdered by Voldemort. And also mentions the whole Peter Pettigrew thing was like one of the people that Sirius Black killed or responsible for, and the whole his finger, all that was left was his finger. I really like how that is like such a subtly thing that's thrown in there that really comes back and plays like a super important part in everything. So that's pretty sweet. So up until this point, what?
I love when that happens. Like there's just like a little sprinkle or something, and then it loops all the way back around, and you're like,
yeah, no way.
This is the first book, obviously, like I just kept getting mind blown over and over and over again.
Yeah, and when you're reading, like as you're reading it, there's so much stuff that is just super not important that doesn't become important until like chapters later, which is really cool. Something as small as like a line like that. So up until this point, do you really have any indication as to why Sirius Black is trying to get to Harry?
No, I mean they kind of all the like the scene that makes you understand what everyone's perspective is when they're at Hogsmeade and they're overhearing the teachers talk about it, and they were saying like they explain like, oh, he used to be with Voldemort, he's coming back, blah blah, he's trying to help him again, get Voldemort back to power. So I guess I was just kind of going along with that timeline, because other than that, I don't know. I didn't know why he was like so obsessed.
Right. It makes it seem, I'm pretty sure it makes it seem like people keep mentioning like, oh, Harry's in danger, but I think most of it is because he was a big supporter of Voldemort, right? And now you finally get the specific reason that like he was physically involved with Harry's parents getting murdered. So it kind of raises the level of alarm. Christmas rolls around. Harry receives a firebolt. Professor McGonagall takes it away because she thinks it may be cursed or something that Sirius Black sent.
Yep.
Which is at the time kind of scary, but now it's kind of funny that when you think about it. After the holidays, Harry finally begins working with Lupin to fight Dementors. This is a super, super, super awesome sequence. Their relationship is really awesome. The Patronus charm is introduced into the story. Expecto Patronus. Do you have any idea what you think your Patronus would be?
Well, see, it's like I know what I would want it to be because it's my favorite animal, but then like it could.
What would you want it to be?
Like, my favorite animal or my spirit animal is a tiger, so that would be cool.
That's an intense Patronus. That's a big Patronus. Whatever. To each his own. So Harry's working with Lupin on his Patronus, which is awesome.
I love this whole sequence, like how Lupin, takes him under his wing and really spends the time with Harry. Like that's when you start to learn like Lupin's like a really good dude. And his whole character arc is awesome.
Yeah, I mean he is the Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher, right? So you would assume that he'd be the one to help him with this stuff. Later on, Sirius Black breaks into Harry's dorm. He messes up Ron's curtains, which is super, super intense. Because again, how is this guy continually getting to the school? There's so much security around. There's so much heightened security focused on this one person, and he continually gets into where he's not supposed to get into under defying all odds. I don't understand how he continues to do that. Hagrid invites Harry and Ron over for tea. It's kind of annoying, but Ron and Hermione being like butting heads all because he keeps accusing Crookshanks of eating Scabbers and stuff like that. That's just like a funny storyline.
They had a rocky time in this book. Hermione was annoying too. How she kept. I mean, It's annoying, but at the same time, it's brave that she does it. Like she sacrifices her positive relationship, but she's also she's looking out for them, like tattletaling all the time. Like, oh, he has a broom that could be from Black. Gets that taken away, they're pissed, and she tattles on him like 2 more times, I think, for some other stuff. But she's like looking out for him, but she knows it's gonna piss him off.
Right, because she's like the mom in this situation, and they're the two idiot kids. Shortly after this, Harry gets the Marauders Map confiscated by Snape, which Lupin saves. Later on, Hermione. Let's talk about Hermione hitting Draco Malfoy. So, take me through that process reading for you. How satisfying was that?
It was satisfying. She's like the first one to really stand up to the bully physically. It was hilarious. Like reading Ron's reaction too. It was kind of everyone's reaction. Like he's like, whoa, like what has gotten into you? Like you're breaking rules. You're hitting people. What the heck?
My favorite part about that is we got two wizards in a fight, and instead of using magic, Hermione winds up, slaps him across the face. I respect the hell out of that. So we get into exams. Everybody's stressed out, blah, blah, blah. Professor Trelawney predicts Voldemort's return into that crazy scene with Harry when it's kind of just the two of them. And surprisingly enough, Harry kind of, honestly, I feel like he kind of shrugs it off a little bit. Like it's an alarming thing, but like he doesn't go to like Dumbledore. Like he doesn't bring a whole lot of people into the mix. It's kind of just relying on Ron, and Hermione to like fix and solve the situation, which is really stupid. Then Buckbeak is going to be executed. The three of them go to Hagrid's hut. They find Scabbers. Buckbeak is, of course, at that time executed. How heartbreaking was that for you reading that he got executed?
It was sad. Hagrid's whole emotional roller coaster in this book ridiculous. Like he's so excited to be a teacher, and then he's worried about Harry, and then he's scared that Buckbeak's gonna get in trouble and he's gonna get fired, and then he's depressed because he does both of those things. Like I was like, dude, this man is going through it right now.
And he's just he's like such a big, goofy, like soft person, and to see him like in so much distress is just heartbreaking.
And it's like a first major moment where you see like these main characters not getting their way every time. So
they lost. Like that was the first problem that they've had, that they've really lost, and Buckbeak gets killed. Terrible. Right after that, kind of the whole kind of climax of the book. Large Dog approaches, grabs Ron, takes him under the Whomping Willow, to which Harry and Hermione follow him. They end up arriving at the Shrieking Shack, which is a place near Hogsmeade that they saw. Shrieking Shack was told as like this haunted, really scary place that nobody really goes to, on the outskirts of the little town. They go into the room, find out that the dog has turned into Sirius Black. So reading that for the first time, that's a huge moment.
Yeah, because wow, that's just multiple levels of like mind blown. So like now you know that he's been with Harry the whole time, watching him, following him, whether he's in human form or dog form, which means that now you realize that there's people who can like just turn into animals. Like, I mean, McGonagall could do that into a cat, but like, I don't know. That's like beyond transfiguration. Like that, like they coined the like a whole term about him, like what are they called, animagus or something. There's only like very few of them in the past century. So like you're learning all this at once. I was just like, what is happening right now?
It's a lot. Through all of that, Sirius Black, Harry, Ron, and Hermione kind of go at it. Expelliarmus, blah, 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 blah. Lupin shows up. Quickly running through this, Lupin and Black kind of explain everything that's been going on. Peter Pettigrew, Lupin's a werewolf. They talk about the old days with James, Sirius, Lupin, and Peter Pettigrew being best friends. It's the plural form is animagi, right?
Yeah.
I think it's Jai, Animagi. Humans, again, like you said, humans being able to take on animal forms like we've seen McGonagall do into a cat. They're up in the room talking about all this, and then boom, Snape has Harry's invisibility cloak over top of him, which I think is funny. He pops out.
You start learning, right, that Black's not really a villain at this point. Like, he's friends with my dad or Harry's dad, and they're all best friends. I trust Lupin, and like maybe he's, I don't know, like he hasn't learned the truth about the murder yet of Peter Pettigrew, but
Right.
yeah, he's starting to like unravel it.
Right, and then eventually they get to the point they just explain the whole thing of Peter Pettigrew being the actual reason why Harry's parents were killed. The whole finger thing. This is where the whole finger thing comes back. Scabbers was missing a toe this whole time, which I think is so awesome. They are going back to the school. Harry convinces them not to kill Peter Pettigrew, which is nice, I guess. Very, very Potterish of him. They're going back to the school. Unfortunately for them all, there's a full moon up in the sky, so Lupin starts freaking out, turning into a werewolf. Sirius goes back into his little dog situation, and they duke it out, which is a cool like fight, a werewolf between this big black dog.
Peter Pettigrew escapes during this.
Peter Pettigrew escapes.
It's funny because this is like the part of the book where it looks like it's like coming out of the climax and everything's fine and dandy, and then it just immediately went all to shit.
So. Yeah, because of a full moon. It could have ended right there, like it could have been over, but the full moon comes out. Lupin and as a werewolf and Sirius Black as a dog are fighting, and then the Dementors come, right? Because I guess they sense Sirius Black or something like that. Mm-hmm. So the Dementors start going after Sirius. Harry comes over to try to save him. The Dementors are now going after Harry. So both of them are just like getting the kiss. Well, I guess it's not the total kiss yet, but they're all getting screwed up by these Dementors. And then as Harry's like kind of fading away, a huge Patronus comes over the lake and kind of gets all the Dementors out of the way. So at that moment, did you have any idea where that Patronus came from and how they were kind of saved? Like, what was your thought?
Well, as reading it, I think Harry, like the scene after Harry said that I saw briefly who was standing there and it looked just like my father.
Yeah, you said like it was my dad. What did you think reading that?
I mean, I didn't think it was his dad because his dad is dead. But I thought maybe it was like some kind of spirit of him or materialization. Like whatever I thought was completely incorrect. And that was another big mind-blowing moment. Yeah, not who I thought it was. I thought it was just, I was like, how is this going to be James? Because who else? Like, I didn't understand.
Yeah, I mean, that's just something that you read and you're like, what is going on? How could it be his dad? What's going on with that? Harry wakes up in the hospital wing. They're talking about Sirius Black getting the Dementor's kiss, which I just mentioned. Dementor's kiss, of course, sucking the soul out of somebody, which is like so intense. You don't just go to jail, you get your soul sucked out of you. Then enters Dumbledore. The whole idea of the hourglass that Hermione has, I forget what it's called. The time turning device. It's not really an hourglass.
Time turning.
Yeah. So Dumbledore's like, use your friggin' time thing. So they go back in time, and of course, this is how Hermione's getting to all of her classes because she's taking a crazy workload, which is whatever. Also, it's cool that Dumbledore's like, oh, you have a huge workload. Let me give you this insanely thing.
Throughout the whole book, you keep mentioning that she's in two places at once. I was so like, I was like, I gotta know, like, how? Like, I was just as frustrated as Harry and Ron. Like,
it's Harry and Ron, yeah.
No sense. I didn't even know that the time turner was a thing. So then she just said, "Oh yeah, this is what I've been using." I'm like,
wow. Yeah, it's so like effortless. Like, oh, I'm just time traveling. Like, no big deal. Yeah. So Harry and Hermione, obviously Ron's neck or legs busted up because of when Sirius was chewing on him. They go back. They not only save Buckbeak, but they get to the part where Sirius and Harry are getting dragged out by Dementors and everything, and they're waiting there. They're waiting for James Potter to pop out. It's getting to that last moment, so Harry has to step up, do his Patronus, which is super strong. He saves himself. He saves Sirius, which is really great. Hop on Buckbeak, fly up to the tallest tower where Sirius is locked away, grab Sirius, fly him off to safety.
That part where it was actually Harry saving himself, that shit was like, that was my favorite part. Cause like I didn't have I don't know, I was so shook by that. I didn't have any even I thought that was gonna happen. And then like the 2 sentences before he said he like decides that it's, oh my god, it's me. Like that's where I realized it. I'm like, is it gonna be him? Like no one else is coming.
Yeah, and
He
it's
thought it was his dad's because he looks like his dad. So it was like,
he gets it all the time, right? Except for his eyes. He's got Lily's eyes.
yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, that whole ending sequence. I know I just jumped through it really quickly, but they got to save Buckbeak. They saved Sirius. They got back to the perfect time. Like everything went perfectly for them. And the fact that I think I'm happy they saved Sirius, but I think personally the fact that they saved Buckbeak, I think was
Right.
made me happier than them saving Sirius at that moment. So the school year is pretty much ending. As the story pretty much always ends at the end of the school year. Lupin's leaving because he's a freaking werewolf. Like, you can't really have a werewolf teaching.
Sirius like offers Harry to live with him. Harry goes from like hating this man, wanting to kill him, and then he's like, "Oh yeah, I'll go live with you." That gives such a quick turn, but
Yeah, it's such a quick turn, but it's cool how the turn happens because
he trusts him if he knows.
you learn so much. I mean, he's his godfather. Like he and his dad were best friends. Like he's not been trying to hurt him. He's been trying to help him this entire time, thinking that he was out to get him and everything. He gives him a Hogsmeade permission letter. He gives him a new Firebolt broom, and he gives Al, or what's Ron's little owl that he gives him? It's like isn't it like really bad? Pigwidgeon. It's like a really shitty owl. It sucks. And then Harry kind of ends the school year and is off to the Dursleys. So that's the quick plot overview. That kind of took a long time, but whatever. So as we always do, let's jump into some of the new things that were kind of introduced to you in the whole Wizarding world. What were some of your favorites? What were some of your new favorite characters? Just whatever.
Marauders Map for sure was my favorite magical item. I like that you get to learn that there's all these passages, Hogsmeade, and different places throughout Hogwarts. That's awesome. I love all the new characters. I mean, not characters, creatures like Buckbeak, of course. One of my favorite things about this book, though, is like how much time that you spend in the classroom. Because, like, in the first two, those never are actually at class, and then, which is weird because that's why they're there. They're at a school, so like this one, they got really like student-teacher relationship based, which was cool.
Yeah, you even have Snape's substitute teaches for Lupin in one of his classes and makes him write a paper on werewolves, which is at the time like that's so random, but again, that's pretty funny that he did that.
I'll learn this later, so you can tell me if I just know it. But like, is the Patronus used for other things, or are you just supposed to summon that for Dementors?
I'm pretty sure it's just for Dementors. I'm not completely sure. It continually comes up, but there is, I think, the symbolism and the idea of the Patronus becomes more important than the actual spell.
Okay, yeah, I like the idea, like this spiritual version of yourself.
Right. I think that plays more of a part in the future series than like actually casting the spell. So let's dive into a quiz real quick, as we always do. I love doing the quizzes. How did Harry signal to be picked up by the night bus? By saying the incantation loud and clear, by releasing the magic bus powder at the bus stop, by sticking out his wand arm at the curb, by purchasing his ticket for 14 sickles. It was sticking out his wand arm at the curb. That was like signaling, like when you get a taxi, like hail a taxi, like hey taxi. For the night bus, as a wizard, you just stick your wand arm at the curb, and that's the signal. You're come. I need some help. Who did Harry Potter pretend he was when he boarded the night bus? Dean Thomas, Ron Weasley, Seamus Finnegan, or Neville Longbottom?
Neville, I think. Neville Longbottom.
Correct. Nice. That was a good one. When the Weasleys won the Daily Prophet Grand Prize Galleon Draw, where do they travel? Albania, Egypt, Morocco, or Peru?
Egypt.
That is correct. Good job. Ron talks about it like crazy. What is the best remedy after a Dementor encounter?
Chocolate.
Chocolate is correct. What model broomstick is Harry sent by an anonymous source?
Firebolt.
Right. Can you name any other wands? Sorry, broomsticks. Models.
Nimbus 2000. There's the Nimbus 2001.
Right. That counts.
Forget the old like shitty one.
There's a clean sweep series. I think there's a clean sweep and then a couple numbers. I think in this book there's like a clean sweep 7 or something. Something like that. I don't know. Who replaces the fat lady as guardian of Gryffindor Tower after Sirius Black's first attack? That's a great question. Billy's Derwent, Armando Dippet, Sir Cadogan, Dexter Fortescue.
It's the knight. I think it's the C name.
Yeah, Sir Cadogan. He's like, oh my god, he's great. It's a great addition. Ooh, here's a good one. In Hogwarts, in the actual school of Hogwarts, how many secret passages are shown on the Marauders map? 3, 7, 9, or 17?
9?
No, the answer is 7. And here's a little fun fact about the whole book series. If you go back to the 3 books that we've read, the numbers 3 and 7 are everywhere. Everywhere. The vault was 713. I think 7, I forget the explanation, but I think 7 was J.K. Rowling has like some affiliation with like the numbers 3 and 7 that's like magical or like mythological and things like that. So the numbers 7 and 3 appear anywhere. So if there's ever a trivia question and there's a 7 and a 3 available, I would go with that one. Where is the secret passage from Hogwarts to Honeydukes hidden? Behind a suit of armor, behind a portrait, in the room of requirement, behind the statue of a one-eyed witch.
One-eyed witch.
The statue of a one-eyed witch. Good job. How many hours into the past do Harry and Hermione travel in an attempt to rescue Sirius and Buckbeak? 1, 2, 3, or 5?
1.
What did I just tell you?
Wait, say the question again.
How many hours into the past do Harry and Hermione travel in an attempt to rescue Sirius and Buckbeak?
How many hours?
1, 2, 3, or 5?
3.
Yes. I just told you 7 and 3 are like always the answer, and you guessed 1. He says, well, first he says, I think 3 turns could do it. I think that's what he says, something like that. How did Sirius Black get past the portrait and into Gryffindor Tower? He slashes the portrait, apparates, had a list of the passwords, climbs through the window.
He had the list of passwords.
What was the nickname of Sirius Black with his friends at school? Moony, Wormtail, Padfoot, and Prong.
Wormtail, it's not Prong. Padfoot?
Padfoot. Can you mash up the names with the people?
Yeah, that was so cool is when I'm learning about how they all have an animated animal. And then you learn that they wrote the Marauders Map together. That's when like the random names on the title.
Right.
I'm like, what? So Wormtail, if referring to how a rat's tail looks like a worm, is obviously pedigree. Padfoot, because like the dogs have paw pads. Frogs was James Potter's. Was he like a stag or like an
antlers?
Elk? Yeah, the antlers of like an elk or a stag, and then what's the last one?
Moony.
Because
the moon.
The moon.
Lupin.
Oh, yeah, Lupin. Yeah, Lupin's fear is the moon because of the werewolf.
Right. How many muggles did Peter Pettigrew kill when he faked his own death? 7, 12, 21, 19. The answer is not 7. So 12, 21, or 19.
A lot. Wasn't it like 19?
The answer is 12. 12 is still a lot if you really think about it. He killed 12 people. Why did Sirius Black take the blame for the death of Harry's parents? He helped Voldemort capture them. He knew they were going to be attacked, and his fear of he who must not be named kept him from saving them. He convinced them to make Remus Lupin their secret keeper. He convinced them to make Peter Pettigrew their secret keeper.
And to make Peter Pettigrew. So
right.
felt guilty because he screwed up.
Yeah, so in actuality, Peter Pettigrew is the one who pretty much screwed everybody over because he sucks. How do you stop the Whomping Willow's branches from moving? Stroking the trunk, touching a knot on the trunk. They never stop moving by pouring water on it.
Touching the knot.
Let's do one more question. How did Sirius finally escape Azkaban? He attacked a Dementor and jumped out the window, stole Fudge's wand after he visited him, transformed into a dog and slipped past the Dementors, or he was digging a tunnel for 12 years.
He turned into the dog because a dog doesn't necessarily think like a human, so they couldn't really pick up on him. This was cool too. I'm looking at the cover again. I just like to look at the art and stuff, but when I read like that last scene where they take Buckbeak up in the air to the tower to save Sirius, and they're having that last conversation. So like I know obviously like the cover is of that scene,
Right.
where him and Hermione are riding Buckbeak. But I never saw this until I read that part of the book, is that Sirius Black is on this cover. I never knew that.
If I'm correct, book 3, book 1, and book 2.
Yeah.
Is that how your order goes so far?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I feel like you love the way the book 1 ended. So this is your favorite book so far. I've said this at the beginning. This is my favorite book out of all the series. Not that the other ones aren't awesome. I think the Sirius Black storyline with Harry, I think, is like my favorite storyline. And their relationship will continue through the series and stuff, but the whole beginning to end of this book, I think, is my favorite. Also, to your point, and I'm happy you said this because I don't think I thought about it at the time, the amount of time that they spend in school, in class, I think had a huge positive effect on me. Mm-hmm. Just like I want to be a Hogwarts student, and this is like my first time that I really get to see it consistently. So I definitely agree with you on that. Before we go, do you have anything else you want to add for this beautiful book?
Not really. It was amazing. Can't stop thinking about it. I've already started Goblet, but I wish.
How long did this take you to read? How many days? And don't count the days you didn't read. Just like the days that you read, how many days do you think it took you?
Read probably like 5 or 6.
That's solid. Well, that's it. Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban.
Yes, sir.
Blow your candle out if you would like. As always, Expecto Patronum. Mm-hmm. I don't know any other spells. I mean, Lumos, I guess, was used pretty good in this one too. But Johnny Trapp, thank you as always, talking about book 3, Harry Potter and Azkaban. Next up, Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire.